That's my quant.
Your what?
My quantitative.
You show me a pay stub for $72,000 on it, I quit my job right now and I work for you.
Be first, be smarter.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm not fucking leaving!
another great day.
Sell it all.
Hang out
today
with your boy.
Look at this thing! It's beautiful!
Welcome to the fucking show.
Mateo De Niro. I don't know why this thing is skipping like a crazy person. Sorry, I thought I fixed this. Let me see. Let me see if going to 720 fixes it. Probably not. Maybe it did. Hopefully you guys are doing well. There's nothing really in particular that I wanted to say today other than just come say hi and see how things are going, and appreciate everybody for coming on and watching the stream. And also the folks that I was able to meet in person on Sunday. That was absolutely phenomenal. Appreciated seeing everybody. It was always very humbling to be able to go to a place and hear people and see people recognizing you. And with that, obviously, it means you guys watch. And we have somebody from Melbourne, Australia, watching right now. It's insane. So the love and the support has just been absolutely phenomenal. I would appreciate if you guys do ever listen to podcasts or anything on Spotify, to check out the link in the description. I am taking the opportunity to also upload these podcasts or streams that I do to Spotify, recognizing that people also listen on Spotify. And also for those people that don't have YouTube Premium and they want to listen while they work out or while they're doing any sort of errands around the house, or they don't have the opportunity to kind of close out the application, you can potentially listen on Spotify. And so I'm starting to do that, and I'm starting to get a little traction, and appreciate anybody that wants to potentially sign up and listen there. I've lost my voice for a lot of the week after screaming and things like that on Sunday. So once again, it was an absolute pleasure meeting people. It was my first time meeting Tevis, my first time meeting Erwin. Let me think if there's anybody else. I mean, there's a lot of non-content creators that it was my first time meeting as well. But let's get to something important. Let's get to the markets. So appreciate everybody stopping by. I just listened to Amit and Steve finish up, and I figured, hey, you know what? Let me take the opportunity to say hello. They had over 1,000 people watching. Okay, I listen while driving, so Spotify would be perfect. And if you guys are interested, you can also watch the videos on there as well. So I'm not exactly sure how the videos work and everything like that when the application is closed or your phone is closed, but definitely the sound piece will work perfectly. So please, any feedback that you guys have, rate the podcast as well on there. If you guys could, it might be very helpful to continue to get people out in loving. Crypto winter is effing here, guys. Can you believe that? I wasn't sure if it was going to wait until February or March until it kind of happened. And honestly, if you asked me a year ago and you go back in the track record, I think I probably was stating that it would be more likely to happen in the fourth quarter of 25, but just based off the price action, really it was kind of lackluster and losing a lot of momentum throughout the second half of the year. And so even though it kind of got pushed out into the first quarter of 26, I mean, here we are. And that doesn't necessarily mean we don't have a spike back up to the mid 80s, but I feel like we're going to stay in the 60 to 70 range for quite some time, for the next 12 to 18 months. And it goes back to something when I was listening to Amit and Steve, and I've never been a disliker of BMNR, but I've always been an advocate that I thought it was way too early for folks to be getting in when everybody 3-4 months ago were really focusing on it. And everyone was asking, like, Matt, like, are you interested? And I'm a big, I'm a cryptocurrency guy. Like, I don't dislike cryptocurrency, but my thought process behind it was, I mean, right now it was a little bit long in the tooth. And so I'm not going to sit here and say I told you guys so, but I think if you're sitting here and you're wondering how to prioritize this, I am under the firm belief that within 3 to 4 months, if people are sitting here wondering, and I could be wrong on this, I do think that there's going to be the companies out there that don't show true revenue generation and are still super speculative that may take a lot longer to recover. But the companies that show promise, the companies that are actually delivering, the companies that are actually executing and not just based off of pure speculation, I'm cautiously confident that they will rebound over the next 3 months or so. And what I can guarantee, um, or I can't guarantee, but what I like to think is sometimes people try to be too smart. They think that they're trying to perfect things. And so this has been a little bit of a heated debate today. As I wrote a post earlier when people were talking about, I'm going to wait for this company to get to my perfect price. I'm going to wait for that company to get to my perfect price before buying. And these are people that might not even have positions in those companies right now. And the funny thing is, I'm going to say something exactly counter cyclical to exactly what I'm saying right now. But crypto is a different market. But regardless, I hear so many people being like, "No, I'll buy Rocket Lab, when it gets to 40, or I'll buy Palantir below 100." And it's like you can't guarantee that. What you can guarantee is it's in the 125 to 135 range right now. And to me, if you're looking 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road, I would much rather own the stock at 120 than not have any stock at all. And so, use that point, right? If you're really that interested, and I've seen this time and time again where people are like, oh, it never actually dipped back to my perfect price. I never actually got in. I know so many people like that with Palantir. I was literally talking to another guy earlier today about how he never ended up buying Bitcoin, even though I was telling him to buy it in the 20,000 range. And he's getting in, 3x the price of what it was. And it's all because he couldn't find the perfect price. Sometimes it's better to just own it, especially if you have this long. And if it gets cheaper, find a way to get more money. At the end of the day, your goal is to own as much of these assets as possible. It's not about being perfect. It's about just being in the room sometimes. And so that's that. And then I'm cautiously optimistic that things will recover from here. I'm not saying we're bottoming tomorrow. I'm not going to say the market's up tomorrow. But what I will say is in 2 to 3 weeks, I anticipate that whatever's going on in the markets with people getting liquidated and margin called and everything like that will probably cease. And there's going to be an opportunity to get more money into the market. Wouldn't be surprised if cryptocurrency in its whole continues to go down, dip into the high to mid 40s for Bitcoin. But what I will say is I don't think it's a bad time to buy or start DCing into BM&R. But I say that with a caveat that because I anticipate we're going to be in crypto winter for the next 12 to 18 months, and kind of like the next until I would just say mid 27 for now is kind of my thought process, and that will evolve as we live through it. I would prioritize buying some of these companies that are down 50, 60%. And I'm not saying just because a company is down 50, 60% that it's worthwhile buying. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is evaluate the companies that have retraced. Yeah, I made a joke on Snapchat I use Snapchat to record because I can play music and record on Snapchat. But I don't ever really post on Snapchat. But I posted it to my Instagram, basically stating that I'm pawning all my watches because I bought the dip and it keeps on dipping. So there was a kind of a joke in there. But if I were to prioritize, I would look at the companies that are executing, doing well, and growing. So things like Palantir, and maybe Palantir is still expensive here. I get that. But something like a Palantir that's growing, putting up phenomenal results, did exactly. And I think it's pretty funny. People were like, oh, but Copilot, like that's going to be a pretty good revenue stream. It's just like, if you compare Copilot to Gemini in terms of capability, as well as user growth, it's a no brainer, right? Like I'm not saying Microsoft Copilot is garbage or anything like that, but when given the opportunity at work, I use Gemini. And so there's that piece. But really think about if you're going to be putting money into these markets. I would focus on equities before cryptocurrency, because I think you're going to have the time to feel out what's going to happen with crypto during this winter time. And I might be wrong. Like maybe we have a spike up, and you feel like Matt, you're an idiot, you missed it. We could be very well. That could very well be the case. But I am consciously confident that crypto winter is now upon us. We probably will. Who knows where we'll end up? What I will say is that I don't feel confident we'll go to the 80s and level off at the 80s. I think we could dip down to the 40s and then come back into the high 50s, low to mid 60s for the next 12 to 18 months. So if you were to potentially prioritize, I would prioritize those other companies. But also, I would potentially look at, just because this is something that isn't new, this is something that Chris Patella said and Steve has said, and I've said as well. If you see some of these beaten down companies, like Pepsi, for example, which was up 5% today, maybe it wasn't today, but it was the other day. It was up 5% and has been getting some love. Like some of these companies are trading at really decent valuations. It wasn't up 5% today, but it was up. I was listening to Josh Brown on the Compound, and it's up 13% in the past week. You have some of these companies that are trading at okay valuations. Obviously, I wouldn't go rushing into Pepsi right here, but I'm sure there's other companies out there that fit the value side that are on the bottom half of the S&P 500 that have been beaten down because they're not technology, because they're not AI. But you think some of those companies have yet to implement those opportunities. And this isn't something that, I'm kind of just parroting this off of what I heard in the Compound, but it's very true. And has been a big proponent as to why I'm so bullish on something like Palantir, is because you can take some of these 20th century, 21st century, not sexy businesses, and implement the AI aspect of them into the business themselves, and fundamentally change some of the efficiencies that are going on. So yeah, I appreciate everybody that stopped by. The biggest question that I got was, what do I think is going on with SpaceX and the XAI potential merger and Tesla potential merger? And that was on Sunday before the news had come out that XAI was actually purchased by SpaceX. And I think overall, you're going to continue to see consolidation in the space industry. But I think that it's okay to be in a number 2 spot. And I think Rocket Lab is putting that in there. And what I continue to find is that SpaceX is thinking really at a Mars level length. And I'm not saying that Rocket Lab's not going to be doing that, but I think that there's still so much market share to be had to capture space as it relates to Earth, and not necessarily putting robots or something on Mars. And so with that, if the continued focus is on Starship, which is fine, I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, that really opens up that medium launch rocket market. And what I was telling folks is I don't think people fully recognize this, and I made a video about this, I believe. At least I said it on Rocket Lab Weekly recently, which is the Starlink version 3 satellite cannot fit on the Falcon 9. I'll repeat. The Starlink version 3 satellite cannot fit on the Falcon 9. And so as you start to release the version 3 of Starlink, you're going to ramp down the amount of usage from Falcon 9. And like 70 to 80% of the usage of Falcon 9 is for Starlink or SpaceX, particularly owned payloads. And so then you start to think, and I'm not sure what the number was for 2025, but I think it was 2023, 2024, one of those years. They did an estimate as to the Falcon 9 payload for non-SpaceX customers, and it was like 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, or maybe it was 3-4 tons or something like that. And if you were to say, okay, about that, well, that 3,000 to 4,000 is under Rocket Lab's Neutron lift capacity, as well as the Falcon 9s. So when you're talking about cost per kilogram, a lot of times people focus on the capacity. Well, if you're not utilizing the entire capacity, you just have, say, a flat $3,000 to $4,000. Then it goes back to who's the cheapest. Because if you could both lift $3,000 to $4,000, it's like taking an Uber XL, right? Like I'm just one person, and I could either take an Uber XL or I could take just a sedan to or from the airport. Well, the Uber XL is going to cost more, and I'm just one person, right? I'm the same person, regardless if I go in the sedan or the Uber XL. Now, if I wanted to be roomier or whatever, maybe I'll pay for the Uber XL, or maybe if I have suitcases, etc. But if it's just me going to and from a dinner or something like that, and I'm being cost conscious, then I'd probably just choose a sedan. Most of the time, I just likely an Uber X. And then also another key piece as well. Not everyone is a big fan of Elon. I like Elon personally. I think he does a good job. And yes, I think sometimes he could do some polishing, but at the end of the day, I like to say what's on my mind as well. So I can't fault him for being himself and standing for what he believes in. So but I do believe that because of that, some people will try to punish you by not fully being invested in your business and or seek other business. So if you think about it, a lot of the launches that have happened for Electron from Rocket Lab are for Japan, Korea, obviously New Zealand companies, Australian companies are signing up for hypersonic capability. The UK, the United States, NASA, European Space Agency. So now you have so many different countries, and I'm not saying that SpaceX doesn't also have some of those opportunities, but in terms of diversifying away from an Elon-only world, I believe that you're going to continue to see success there. And so I think so many people are so hyper-focused on who's number one, who's number one, who's number one. And then you look at the cloud business and you see, oh, it's Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, right? Like you're not talking about just Microsoft when you're talking about cloud. So each of them is going to have their own independent specialties. Like Rocket Lab obviously is trying to put as many things into space as possible, meaning every time something goes into space, they want a Rocket Lab logo on it, whether it's a reaction wheel or whether it's a solar panel or whatever. They're just trying to make sure that they get as much space components business as possible and launch business as possible, versus SpaceX's mission is really to Mars and being able to enable that, and they'll do that in a different way. And so I think that they're trying to do one and the same to an extent, but they're disparate companies and they're going to meet a different need. And so I think both can exist and continue to do well. With respect to Amazon, I think it's a blip in the market. I think that the Anthropic continued usage is going to go extremely well. I think the cloud computing piece did really well. I didn't hear on the call anything about the advertising. I might have been distracted, but that's continued to do well. And man, like this time next year, you should be looking at over 800 billion in revenue, and potentially by 2028, you're talking about $1 trillion in revenue, overtaking Walmart. So I don't know. To me, I think it's extremely beneficial what's going on in Amazon. They're continuing to do well. They're trying to take on healthcare. They're trying to take on advertising. To me, I just think that it's an opportunity for the long term. I'm not piling in money because I already have about 65% of my. Sorry, my voice is still kind of going. I already have about 65% of my initial position in it. But I would like to continue to focus on acquiring shares on the 15th and the last day of the month every time I get paid. And so what I will say is what I have done is originally when crypto was looking kind of like there was still potentially some life left in it towards the end of last year, I turned off my auto buys on that. So it's probably like been off for 3 to 4 months, as I was hoping the we would kind of find out more whether you'd see a peak or go into crypto winter. And unfortunately, when it kind of hit the mid 90s and it stalled out, I was like, okay, well, it looks like we're going to be going into winter here pretty soon. that stated, I've now turned on my Bitcoin and Ethereum buys. So that'll be buying as well. The 15th and last day of every month. And I bought some Bitcoin here today. I bought some Rocket Lab yesterday. I bought some Palantir today. So to me, when you're thinking about, 5-10 years down the road, I think those are going to be great opportunities to buy. And so for me, that's kind of where I put my money where my mouth is. I did another opportunity today while Hood was down pretty drastically. I didn't time it perfectly, but I don't, I'm not really good at timing, period. But what I did do was when Amit and I were chatting back and forth about Rocket Lab, he was asking me why I'm not involved in Hood. And so at the same time that he had kind of bought Rocket Lab, I had bought a Leap on Hood. And once it got to like the hundreds, 125, 130 or something like that, I eventually sold an opposite call to kind of turn it into a spread. And I think that it was at like 125 or something like that. And that call was up 85% today. And so I was able to buy it back for, I don't know, whatever it was, 85% profit. And my Leap that I had bought for January 27 was still up like 75 or 80%. And so I closed out both. And that Leap was at the $40 strike. I don't remember when I bought it, but probably early 2020. It might have been around the time of Liberation Day. I don't really remember. But regardless, it was up, made money on it. And what I did was I rolled that into two Hood $50 calls for, was it December? Or the December ones even out? Let me see. If the December ones are out, I bought the December 28. If they're not, whoops. And I might have only bought. No, okay. So they don't have December 28. They just have January. So I bought $50 January 28, $50 Leaps on Hood. And so whenever that decides to potentially go back up, if it does, because if anything, yes, I believe that there's a headwind on Hood because of crypto and obviously people trying to liquidate that. But at the same time, I still think that with prediction markets and options and everything, that Hood is still going to have a good time overall in terms of continued growth and benefit. It might take a step back a month or two. I guess we'll find out here if they already haven't released the statements for January timeframe. They will, and so to me, good opportunity to potentially see how they stood up in January because they released that monthly. But yeah, I just saw a good opportunity, and maybe it continues to drop, and maybe I add more to those Leaps. But I think a $50 is a good one to potentially look at. Let's see. What else is there, man? I mean, got back on Monday. All the cigars that Steve provided were there. I was happy to meet Steve again for the second time. Meet Steve's wife. That was awesome. Like I said, Tanner was a blast to meet. Just trying to pick his brain because he's obviously transitioned now into the full-time role of a YouTube / content creator, and absolutely doing swimmingly. I was listening to him. I had some early meetings, and so I rolled out of bed. And originally, I was supposed to have jury duty today, so I was originally when I was working from home, and then I got the message late yesterday that it was canceled. They, I guess, resolved it out of court or something like that, and so my jury duty was quote unquote fulfilled, they said. And so didn't have to go in today, which I was weird because I thought that going into jury duty, you were already pre-selected. But I don't know. It was my first time ever trying or getting selected for jury duty. So there was that. But yeah, where was I going with that? Oh, so yeah, I had some morning meetings and then I took a shower. And of course, while I was taking a shower, I listened to Tanner, and that dude, man, he's bright. He's really bright. And Funny as shit, dude. I don't think people give him enough credit. I think people like to troll him a lot, but the dude is really bright. But anyway, that is that. Did I buy anything else? I mean, on Friday, as always, let me see what I always buy here on Fridays. I bought Next Decade, Venture Global, Rocket Lab, Granite Ridge Resources, Palantir, Northern Oil and Gas, Bros, Amazon, Nvidia. No, I didn't buy Nvidia, and Symbotic. So I've been buying a little bit more Symbotic, because that is going to replace what was going to be Skywater Technologies. And because Skywater is continuing to look like it's going to get bought out, not putting money into that until that gets resolved. Now, if Skywater somehow gets out because of this whole pullback, and apparently there's a clause in which I never really read, but if there's a clause, an IONQ, excuse me, starting to get a little sick, doesn't actually show up as well, they could pull out of the deal, and so that could potentially as well be an opportunity. So yeah, other than that, that's the lay of the land. Hopefully that helps you guys. Appreciate 209 of you guys without Steve or anything like that. That's absolutely phenomenal. Appreciate you guys. I'll do a little bit of a Q&A for like 15, 20 minutes and then call it a night. So yeah, got my personal quant, Cole messaging me. He's a good dude. So yeah, let's go through. Let's just see. Matt, you were doing smart things into the same leap for December 27. I assume you're talking about Robinhood. Tanner on Red Days is a must see. Tanner's just a good dude all around. Did you see if Congress canceled the Mars mission funding outright, or is it just delayed? I didn't see. I anticipate it's just delayed for now. Who's smarter, Tanner or Amit? I don't like to think it like that, man. I like to think of it like we each have our areas of concentration, and we each are able to bring something different. And I don't like to say one is smarter or the other. One, I don't know the answer to that, and then two, we're stronger together. I mean, it just goes to show, like at the event on Sunday, of course, Amit was the headliner because he has the most followers, but people were excited to see Tanner. People were excited to see Steve, and they all bring something completely different to the market. And I think that that's beautiful. And it also goes to show that there's no one size fits all to be successful in this market. It's more about particularly hyper focusing on being consistent, showing up, and kind of figuring out your way through it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a certain way. Now, you could relate more to Amit or to Tanner, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't think that one is inherently smarter than the other. They both do something completely different, and they both do something really well. And so yeah, even if one was smarter than the other, I still believe that you should be listening to multiple people. I listen to Tanner, I listen to Steve, I listen to Amit, I listen to Roy, I listen to Tevis, I listen to Doug. Doug and I had a good conversation while I was falling asleep, taking the flight home on Monday, in the airport. He was asking me some really good, thoughtful questions. And we're stronger together, and that diversity of thought, I think, is why we'll succeed. Always have a board of directors. That's something I said on a midstream on Friday. Bounce things off by other people. You might not necessarily agree with it wholly, or you might not have come up with that solution on your own. And I think that's part of the beauty. Do you interested in FTNT or any security company? Is FTNT forwarding it? Yeah, I don't know much about it, man. Sorry. What made you get into Next Decade? Well, I work in oil and gas, and I know about a lot of the LNG projects going on. And I actually didn't know that Next Decade was a publicly traded company until Chris Patel. And so he kind of pointed it out to me, and I knew that Rio Grande was a project that was going to be happening and that they got approvals, but I never knew that it was publicly traded. And so he actually kind of introduced me to it. And then because I'm familiar with it, I was able to do the economic kind of analysis on it and recognize that if you're able to get beyond train 1, 2, and 3 and really focus on, what happens with trains 4 and 5 and you don't get diluted to shit, then you could actually make a pretty good penny. And I think at the time it was trading like a $2.5 billion market cap valuation. Um, and luckily, because of some of the regulatory things that had gone through, it really pumped up above $10. Um, but because of trains 4 and 5 being sanctioned and it not being diluted, this is kind of an important piece of it. I'm a firm believer that that's beneficial in the long term. It's obviously going to impact you in the short term at a project level because you're going to end up paying more interest because you're not diluting and you're not paying for the things outright. But it's beneficial because you're not being diluted. So no longer do you have so much cash flow split amongst so many things. So the EBITDA for the project is going to be same regardless, but the actual net cash that you end up getting because of interest payments, etc., is going to be lower in this particular case. But to me, if they needed to pay for all that out of pocket and dilute, you'd probably have your share count diluted by 50% or more. And so to me, I'd much rather take a 15% hit on cash flow because of interest payments than being diluted by 50%. And so I think what ended up happening is the people that were doing the economics were looking at it on like an asset level basis. My anticipation, right? I don't know anything for certain. And they said, wow, they're going to make $150 million less. That's obviously a huge impact. Like, let's get the hell out. But to me, if you think about it, well, how are they supposed to fund that, right? Like, they don't make any money. And so the fact that they were able to get funding, period, is actually very bullish. And to me, when they are able to refinance that, when the company starts producing revenue, etc., now you own 100% of your shares that are undiluted, and you'll eventually be able to pay off that debt. It's going to be much easier to pay off the debt than it is to buy back all those shares that get diluted to shit. So to me, I thought it was a benefit. Some people obviously have now since increased their position and bought up because obviously the price has declined a good bit. And then there were two major shareholders that sold or liquidated about 40 to 50% of their positions. So that's that. But yeah, Chris Patel really is the one that introduced me to it. But I knew that Rio Grande was going to be a big project, but I didn't realize also how big it was going to be until Chris had kind of introduced me to it. I have to verify when the LA meetup is. I've had things planned for my sister to come and visit for a long time. And I think just based off of what I'm hearing, it probably coincides. So I might be able to, depending on when the meetup is, if it's like that Saturday or something, then maybe I'll be able to make it. But if it's that Sunday, then I don't know if I will be. So, I thought it was going to be earlier in March. Honestly, I thought it was going to be the first week in March. So I was excited and really hoping to go. And then same thing with Singapore. I was hoping to do Singapore, and that same week, I think if it's actually LA and then Singapore the next weekend, it might be tough. So we'll have to see. I'll have to play it by ear. But yeah, unfortunately, I was hoping that it wasn't going to be that last weekend in March. I was hoping it was going to be like early mid-March. So we'll have to see if I'm going to make it to LA or not. Have you looked into Howmet Aerospace? I assume are you talking about the company that owns Next Decade? I'm trying to remember exactly. Mitt claims he got waitlisted from Harvard. So, well, there you go. We're stronger together. I appreciate that. Yes, I agree. Hood seemed to be moving with crypto. Yes, of course, but it's not only crypto, right? I mean, they have a small percentage, and it's a small but large percentage of their business. But they have other things as well, right? So while it might initially be moving with crypto, eventually it's going to diverge. Do you know you're still killing it in the stock draft? Am I? I just kind of try to take it day by day. I don't really try to compare life, to how I'm doing versus others. I think it's the only person I'm competing with is myself. So, well, it might be nice to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing better than so and so. Um, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm doing well and making the right decisions for me. Got Miss Michelle in the chat. Thank you for moderating and keeping people in line. Love that you're buying Bros, looking to start a position in it. I think it's pulled back a good bit, man. And if you're looking, Bros is going to be interesting. You can't really compare it to everything else. Like if you compare it to like Popeyes or something like that, you're going to be like, oh, but you have to think. I think that a lot of companies are going to go down this route of not franchising anymore. Because when you franchise, you lose control of the culture, you lose control of a lot of the earnings power. So you might be able to grow faster, less capital intensive, but at the same time, you don't get to capture a lot of that revenue. And so that's why I think Bros is going to do better. It's going to have like a Starbucks model per se. Like you could license out Starbucks products, but you never a franchisee per se. They might have some franchises, but not a lot. And so to me, I think that that's why Dutch Bros will have a much larger market cap than a lot of these other franchises that you see out on the market. Matt, are you in BM&R? No. I've been a person that I'm not against BM&R. I just thought it was always too early. And now I think it might be a decent time to potentially initiate a position. Notice you didn't say you listen to Chris. I wouldn't listen to that dude either. Well, a lot of the times when I'm doing stuff with Chris, he's on with me. So I am listening to him. It's just we're doing streams together a lot of times. But Chris is also focused on fixed income right now. And while I don't dislike that, it's just not for me right now. And before this stock challenge with Steve, the $10,000 stock challenge with Steve, I was really starting to get my dividend portfolio in order. And then this has happened. And I'm taking a long-term approach. Like, I'd rather invest in something like Palantir or Rocket Lab than invest in a dividend-focused company. So. I like that mindset of putting a hard number on a stock while we are in a huge dip buy. I think anchoring bias is a real issue with a lot of investors. Yeah, I just noticed so many people just never end up buying the stock sometimes. Think it'll go crazy before Train 4. Was thinking to pump VG until then, since 1 to 3 is like only 20% revenue. I just think once they start generating revenue, period, I think it's going to be really beneficial for the stock because then they can immediately start attacking some of the other debt. Like they're going to be commissioning, I anticipate, within the next 12 months, and all that money has to go somewhere. It's not going to go to the shareholders. So with that, I think a lot of it's going to go with paying down debt. Get him, Michelle. Keep him honest. Amit got a lot of Rocket Lab hate this week. He's just jealous that Rocket Lab market cap is closing in on hoods. I haven't heard anything, but Chris showed one company called Sprouts Farmers Market. Are you going to look into that one? I don't have an interest right now. The latest company that I'm buying, it's not that I dislike Sprouts. I think it's for somebody other than me. I personally am looking at Symbotic as an add to the portfolio, and they had a decent quarter. And I need to listen to the earnings call, but from what I've seen in terms of revenue growth and additional stores and the partnerships that they now have with SoftBank and growing those TAMs, I think that Symbotic is a great company to hold. And while I never got in at a perfect price, I still think there's a lot of time to potentially continue to grow. Would you play World of Warcraft with viewers, community raid nights, perhaps? I wouldn't mind it, but the problem is like if I'm raiding with other people, I don't want to, I don't want to inhibit their play. So like if they're trying to chat and communicate and stuff like that, I'm not trying to um distract them and or make them feel at ease because they're being watched, you know. Apparently you're spamming my guy. Don't be spamming. Michelle's gonna slap you in the face. You think this is all due to crypto leverage? I don't think it's crypto leverage. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about the whole market or hood particularly for this question, but I think that there's just been a lot of fluff, and it's been something I've been warning about for months in Cash Flow Chronicles, even before the turn of the new year, is just telling people, because I remember people. This was even before the November pullback and December pullback. Was I was just telling people like, a lot of these companies don't actually have much to show. There's the companies that are executing, but even still, like a Rocket Lab could get slapped in the face um, if all the other speculative nature of the market leaves. And so, unfortunately, birds of a feather flock together. A lot of the people started to flow out of speculative names, I believe, into more safe names. And I think with that, you might see some companies recover if they're actually generating revenue and delivering. But the companies that aren't, I think, are going to continue to see issues. And I think it was exactly comparable to what happened in 2022 for those types of companies. And I remember stating that multiple times. If you have a company like a Palantir that's delivering, very different than if you have a company that is speculative and has yet to actually deliver a working product. Like small modular reactors, for example. Like I'm bullish on nuclear. I want nuclear to happen, but if you have a company that has a small modular reactor and they've never actually produced one, well, if you're up and it's a $40 billion company, you might want to take some money off the table, and it very well could, make some money, but it's a little different. And then I think people are trying to put that in the same realm as like a Rocket Lab, and it's like, well, Rocket Lab's launched, the rocket into space 81 times. This company's never made a small modular reactor, and you're paying the same market cap value, right? So to me, it's apples and oranges, but to me, it's the same conversation of, is it worth it? And it could very well end up being the be all end all. But what if it isn't? And I think a lot of times right now, people think that there is no risk until the risk shows up. And I think, unfortunately, the risk has showed up. And I knew that something like this was likely to happen, because I knew a lot of people that had not entered the market again since 2022, when a lot of people were just running, at the end of 21, being like, money, I can never lose money, and buying in these stocks. And next thing you know, they didn't know the risk tolerance was, and some of them got burned really badly. So it wasn't until more recently, the past 6 months, where everybody and their mom was the world's best stock picker and Warren Buffett doesn't know anything, that I started to be like, okay, yeah, some of these companies are definitely headed for boggy territory, and to be cautious. I like SoFi here. I wouldn't be, if I had more money, maybe I would reinitiate a position, but I can only have so many. Any thoughts on selling OTM puts on Rocket Lab for sub 40 for 27 or 28 objective? I don't think it's bad. It really just depends on what you're going for. Are you going to use that to then buy like leap calls or something like that? I don't know. When do I think it'll bottom? I don't know. Probably within 26, but I don't think we have a bottom and it stays there. I think it's going to be like a swift move, very aggressively down, into the 40s or 50s. And I feel like we're going to level off here in the low to mid 60s. So yes, you might see it dip down for a day or two, maybe even a couple weeks into the 40s and 50s. But I think we'll stay in the high 50s, low 60s. I think people are just hiding or going to safety, things that are certain, getting risk off. Okay. I wasn't sure if you mistyped. But no, I don't know anything about Helmet. So good luck to you. Um, and maybe if I stumble across it, I'll take a look. Um, I think it certainly could. I'm not waiting for it. You know, I'll be buying Palantir. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I'll be buying Palantir every 2 weeks or so, and if I come across some more money, like I get a bonus next month, and I'm hoping that the market stays down. I just don't think it will, but if it does, I'd be happy to potentially put a lot of that to work. But I've also thought about using that bonus to potentially buy my next property, one that I'm like more proud of. I don't dislike the home I live in. It's just I know it's not my forever home, and so I'm kind of hesitant to decorate it because eventually it's just going to turn into a rental. But at the same time, it's like it's not decorated, right? Like I'd like it a little bit more decorated. Love to see a little bit more passion and love put into the home, and I feel like I need to buy some more canvases and stuff like that to hang. And um, but at the same time, I'm like, should I just concentrate on buying a home that I want to stay in more long term? Um, I saw some beautiful homes that have a little bit more land, and I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, do I eventually want to go back to the Northeast? I don't know. I've been saying I've been wanting to go back to the Northeast since I moved down here. It's not that I dislike this place. I love Houston, but my family's up there. You know. Saw you on a bit stream last year, killing you. Watching you kill it in the stock draft. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Glad you guys are trickling over. I don't try to bombard a midstream. I also work a 9 to 5, and so, but he's been kind enough, and what's the word? He's been generous enough to let me on the stream every couple months, um, when I've asked. So he's never said no. He's just a very nice, genuine person, and yeah, I hope I can collaborate more. It's just I don't want to bother the guy. He's got a plan, and I don't want to hold him back. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little sick, so if I make weird noises, hopefully it doesn't weird you out. Guess you guys missed the passive monthly income hashtag drop. Yeah, he knows nothing. Sure. Don't know what you mean by that, but good luck to you. Considering that next VG is looking like a cash position, it's held up well. I don't know if you're not exactly sure what you mean by cash position. A few other chatters have mentioned it, so I hopped on the bandwagon because I was interested to hear in hearing your opinion. They are steady this week, still near all-time highs. Yeah, man, if I get some time, wouldn't mind. I like Microsoft. I think well, understandably, people are upset about the OpenAI being a 45% of the backlog. To me, their cloud is still growing massively, and even if you remove OpenAI, still has a massively large cloud business that's continuing to do extremely well. What do you think of hedging accounts with SCHD instead of bonds? I think it really depends, man. I mean, I think you're gonna get different things, and there's a difference between buying bonds and bond funds as well. And I want people to kind of think about that. Bond funds, move with interest rates versus the bonds themselves. They also move with interest rates, but you don't have to sell them. So the underlying principal value might change depending. But I don't dislike SCHD. I think if I were to be focused on dividends, and for a whole portfolio sort of analysis, I have a proprietary blend that I like that would potentially yield just as much as SCHD. And it might match the S&P, maybe slightly underperform. What I have my proprietary blend for is more so doubling or getting close to double the dividend of the S&P and matching the S&P. And so it's trying to keep up with the S&P in terms of capital appreciation while doubling the dividend amount. So if you don't need as much of the dividend, you could choke back a little bit. I don't see how Sprouts keeps growing and has been in wealthier areas, and there's a lot of competition with Whole Foods, Jelson's, etc. Yeah, it's a tough business, man. I mean, all the power to them, but yeah, I don't wake up in the morning to invest in grocery stores. And I'm not talking badly about anybody that does. It's just. At one point, I used to be heavily focused on dividends only, and now I'm focusing on trying to get to 8 figures before I'm 40. So, the Vatican is here, guys. Thank God. Literally, I've been concerned about valuations over the past year. There hasn't been much reason to invest with how inflated the market has been. I would disagree. I think that yes, things while have been overpriced. I think some of the things have been the valuations have grown into, like Microsoft. I think is now at a very decent valuation, if not cheap. And then Google was very cheap, and then it's recently just gotten expensive. Amazon, I would say, still cheap. Do you know anything about MDA? Not really. Other than it's a Canadian company. Yeah, Matt, did I expect you since it's 6 a.m. for me getting ready for work? Congrats, man. Hopefully you have a great day at work, brother. Mid to Eastern Europe there. Question for you mods on the chat. Do you consider spamming sending the same message multiple times or just taking up chat with majority of messages? I think it's probably a combo of both. But yeah, the same exact message is also a piece. Rock Lab is a clear long-term path. CRDO, no. Great point. I don't know what CRDO is. Your personal VG next position is held up well, kind of like cash. Okay. Debating switching some of it to Microsoft Palantir. I think the dip is a rare gift. Yeah, you gotta look at it for what you want, and what you think the long-term potential of it might be, depending on what company and when buy. I don't know what your portfolio allocation is to VG and Next, but I don't hate it either. I've thought about potentially selling some of my S&P 500 because I kind of view that as like my cash position, kind of, and putting that into Amazon or something like that. But let me see. You were talking about. Are you buying? This market could drop for longer. Don't always want to catch falling knives. I can't guarantee what the price is going to do tomorrow, Monday. And so yeah, I bought some Rocket Lab yesterday. It was early. I bought some Bitcoin today at like 67,000 or something like that. And I bought some Palantir at $131. So technically I'm down on that as well, but you know, you can't perfectly time everything. And I moved over into Hood. A leap. I had one leap, now I have two leaps. So I don't hate Zeta here. I don't. If everything else stayed the same and Zeta was coming down, maybe I would specifically focus on Zeta, but do you give any credence that the idea that the US allies and rivals are losing trust in the dollar and as a result are divesting? Yes and no. I think part of it is actually a strength though. Because if the dollar value goes down, people are going to be able to purchase more goods, which drives revenue up. And so then when it flows through, you know, things are going to show up well. And when you reshore money, you're going to be able to use it as more dollars as well. So it's a double-edged sword. It's going to be more difficult to send for those people for us to buy European goods and other goods because the forex impacts for us. But we send a lot of things overseas, so there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, the one that told me Rocket Lab was going public almost 5 years ago. Rocket Lab has a clear path, however, they can run into the same issues that every other launch company runs into: anomalies and cost overruns. 100%. Very true. Would you invest in the SpaceX IPO? I would, but probably not in size. I'd invest just because I would like to be a part of the company and its success story, if that so happens. But unless it's a decent valuation, I am a capitalist after all. I mean, I'm not going to buy it at all costs. It has to make some sort of sense to me. What are your thoughts on PayPal? Steve and I talked about this a good bit either yesterday or the night before. They should make us co-CEOs, and instead of buying back all their goddamn stock, they should start a venture capital arm. You think about it. I was, you know, since 2022 or 23, whatever Amazon bought, whatever position in Anthropic, PayPal since 2021 has put like $22 billion worth of buybacks into themselves, and have basically lost money. Versus Amazon putting half of that amount, maybe even less, maybe closer to a third of that amount into Anthropic, and that company has grown into a $350 billion company. So that $8 billion is like 3 or 4, maybe 5x. So you tell me. I think a venture capital arm would do PayPal very good. I think they lack innovation ever since they got spun up by eBay, and it's tough to potentially hire after you're kind of spit out from another company. Yeah, lake or nice little river coming through. Be apartment buddies with a mitt. I don't know what benevolent is. What does benevolent mean? Kind, with positive intentions. Okay. I was gonna say, sounds like violent. And I'm gonna take it as disrespect. Say, watch your mouth. Just kidding. That's from 40-Year-Old Virgin. Do you guys ever see that? Like, watch your mouth and help me with the sale. We're gonna proceed amicably. I think it was just like, we're gonna proceed amicably, and Kevin Hart's it's like, now you're throwing big words at me. And since I don't understand them, I'm gonna take it with a sign of disrespect. 1.6 to X3 is 4.1 years Palantir. I don't speak in code, my guy. I've owned LMT in the past when it was cheaper. And I'm not sure, Cole, if you still own LMT or not. I used to be an apartment guy because I was always hoping to do a little bit more international travel, and it just hasn't worked out that way. Michelle's the best. It was good to hang out with Michelle and Ray over the weekend. It really was. They're good people. I wish I could partake more in hanging out with them. What makes you decide the down payment amount? As I feel we as investors, traders, rather take that big deposit and invest it, so I become hesitant. It really just depends, man. Like, if you're investing for a home, not secondary residences or vacation homes or investment properties, it really just depends on the cost benefit analysis. Like, so many people tell me, they're like, I have to put down 20%. I don't want to pay the private mortgage insurance. It's like, well, I get that, but if private mortgage insurance is only $80 a month, then that ends up being like $1,000 a year. And if you don't, if you, let's just say, to make that extra 15% is like 50 grand, it's like, well, you know, you're potentially saying, let me take 50 grand out of the market to not pay that money. And yes, there is another piece of it as well, right? Like, your payment obviously overall is going to be cheaper as well. But there's ways to kind of do the math around it. Like, I was paying $80 a month or $70 a month for PMI on this place. And I was like, okay, I could pay the 35 or 40 grand, whatever it was, to put the 10% down on this place that I'm living in now. And I could take out the other 40 grand or whatever from my stocks and put it down on this place. But I was like, for $70 a month or something like that, I was like, it's not worth it. Like, I'd rather just keep that money in the market. And obviously that was the right decision, because since 2023, um, that 40 grand was probably invested in Rocket Lab or Palantir or something like that. So it really just depends. It really does. It's not something I can answer for you. It's not important. Like, if I were to say it's going to be 20% of my portfolio versus 5%, does that change how you look at the stock? The stock's the stock. I have, and I'm not trying to be mean. Like, I get a lot of these questions all the time, and it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. It's it's always interesting what people are trying to do, and like, what does it matter if a company is 5% or 100% of my portfolio? Maybe 100% is different, but 5% or 20% of my portfolio. I do think the solid state battery business is a good one. What I'm trying to fight is, um, who was it? Fluence Energy is actually pretty interesting. They are actually creating an operating system, kind of like Palantir to an extent, but like, obviously for solid state batteries, and it's not built off of Palantir or anything like that. But their software is to try to maximize peak power and how much you could buy and store cheaply, and then hopefully sell for later in the evening at a higher rate. And so right now, I think Fluence is a decent potential, but it's already so expensive. And if you're going to look at who's currently winning the solid state battery race, it's actually Tesla. And then there's a Chinese company, and then Fluence. And I don't see Tesla slowing down in that realm. So it's tough. I mean, unless you're investing in Tesla. Um, but maybe a QuantumScape can do well. But to me, it just seems like it's still struggling. I don't think it gets back down. I don't think Bitcoin gets back down to 10 to 15,000. I don't think they're necessarily pumping it to get rugged. I think sometimes people just think very superficially about stocks. I'm not saying Iran. I don't know enough about Iran, but I see a lot of people pumping things because of the potential without truly analyzing the risk, right? So, what do you think about Meta? I like Meta. I think long term, it'll be a great opportunity. It feels so wrong to feel so bullish currently. Nevertheless, I mean, I look 10 years down the road. I don't think that this whatever is going on right now is going to last for forever. The holding Nebius, the only stock green for me is VG. I don't hold any Nebius. Let's see. Matt, you can back up a bit. Well, it's my stream. I do what I want. Am I in Nvidia? I am a shareholder of Nvidia for 10 whole dollars worth. All right. Glad to see that we're starting to get some people on Kick. Much appreciated. Cool to see. Appreciate you guys saying, can you buy me McDonald's? Hey man, if I could, I would. If I could, I would. Hot Chris is here. He's all about that PayPal. Chris is working. He's got that stuff, and now he's putting stuff in the chat. What's he doing? Yeah, I'll be putting words in my mouth. Yeah, see, Hot Coal still in Lockheed. It's been printing. I sold too early on Lockheed. I think I put that money in Rocket Lab or something like that. I'd have to go back and check. I hate when when you say next Rocket Lab, do you mean like returns like the next Rocket Lab? I say 10% is a good rule. The house appreciating in value and you're paying it down every month will eventually get to the 20%. Take PMI off. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think it's up to everyone. Like some people just really hate PMI, and I'm like, okay, well, I get it. Hey man, I think the writing was on the wall. I thought it was pretty easy. And I think, all it took was just looking at previous cycles. It wasn't like some sort of wizard or something like that in terms of being able to call crypto winter. And I did push it back like 3 to 6 months from what I originally thought it was going to be. So I mean, I was kind of originally thinking 3Q, 4Q at 25, and here we are in the middle of 1Q. So I did have to push it back a little bit, but I've been saying the first half of 26 thing now for 6-7 months. It was just early 25. I still was thinking that it could be the fourth quarter of 25. I think people ask about your portfolio allocation because it shows your conviction. So might inspire people to look more into something if someone's smart is putting 20% into a stock. I just don't, I have so little positions that like I rarely buy new companies. And this isn't to say this is the right thing to do. It's just what I do. I rarely buy new companies. And I put a lot of thought into it before I buy something. Like I have less than 10 major holdings. So anything I buy, people if they're interested. But like I stated, just because I'm buying something doesn't mean it's the right thing to buy. Like, it really depends on somebody's risk tolerance. And I met somebody at the meetup, which I want to like call out. I'm not going to state their name, but they basically said like, I'm just going to buy everything that you guys buy because you guys are doing my due diligence for me. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like that. At the same time, this gentleman said if he lost any of the money, he would be devastated and he can't afford to lose it. I'm like, well, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, right? Like, unless you're buying T-bills or something like that, there's always potential for you to lose money. And so, it was very interesting conversation where I think the guy had a very gambler like mentality, but wanted to point the finger at somebody else if it didn't go the right way. Um, and majority of the people had the very good head on their shoulders. So I'm not saying it was the majority of people at the meetup or anything like that, but this one individual, I was very disappointed in hearing that thought process. Um, and it was like you asked him what him or her what they were invested in, and it was just like the main stocks that each of us preach. And it's like at the same time they thought that one of the stocks was going to zero, but he still invested in it, and it was very confusing. Um, I eventually walked away because it was, in my opinion, taking up time from other people that I could talk with. So the actual YouTube guys only talk meme stocks, I believe, is the insinuation. Matt is amongst the most careful entry guys, so concern not applicable. I appreciate that. Chris is AI. Yeah, man, you're doing extremely well in Verizon. Congratulations. I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing your guys' thoughts in the chat as well. But sometimes I just think I don't agree with and I could be wrong, right? Like maybe having a 10 to 20% is different, but I also wish I had more position in Palantir. I just, you know, sometimes you find things late as well. So the account challenge with Steve is probably not going well. I'm excited to um get to it on Sunday because he's probably gonna kick my butt. I think that a lot of this is gonna be resolved within the next couple months. I don't think this is a long-term thing. I think it really just this question goes back to something I stated earlier. Like you can guarantee what the price is today, you can't guarantee what's going to be tomorrow, whether it's higher or lower, etc. So I think if you don't have a position, me personally, if I didn't have a position in Amazon and I wanted one, I would potentially start to add. And if it continued to dip, I'd find more money somewhere, whether that's trimming other positions that I no longer liked or what have you. But I know so many people that a gentleman that I talked with this morning is like, I never bought Palantir. He's like, I'm finally able to buy Palantir, and I told I had the conversation with him when it was at like 40, $50. So now he's buying Palantir at 2.5x of what he wanted to buy it for because he thought it was too expensive back then. And then same thing with Bitcoin. I was telling him at like 20,000, 25,000 to buy it, and now he's buying it at 60, 65,000 tomorrow. So, you know, sometimes you want to get involved in something and it's really not that expensive, even if it's 5-10% away. To me, I would just buy it. To me, what's it matter if you think it's going to be a $10 trillion company? What's it matter if it dips to 195 versus 200, right? Like to me, it's more important that you get that appreciation to 10 trillion. That's what's more important to me. So even if I had 5% or 10% less stock, I want to at least guarantee that I get that opportunity. And I think Warren Buffett says it really well. Like, you know, um, pretty much like I'd rather buy a great company at a fair price than a bad company at an extremely cheap price, you know? Far from a wizard, man. Far from a wizard. Have you lost large amounts of money? Yeah, I lost money on Wish. I thought that they would do. Um, I thought they would do a lot better, but I think once they removed the CEO, it was just a death pill at that point. Downward spiral. Why would the start of crypto winter not be early 4Q25? That's when they all topped, at least for now. I mean, you couldn't really tell, right? Because it was at 95 just last month. So I thought that that 95 could have potentially led to going over 100, 105, 110. Thought that that could have been a start of a brief rally. I mean, it's easy to call in retrospect that, oh, it's been in crypto winter for how long, but it peaked out at 95 here, not too recently. It's because my eyes are tired, guys. Sorry. I'm wearing contacts. It's just my eyes are getting tired. And I also have the light in my eye. You own crypto junk, yuck. Okay. Not for everybody. Not sure I've heard you talk on how you believe you had the edge in identifying winners early. I don't know if I have an edge, per se. I just find companies that I like. Um, and um, companies I think have potential and that are executing. And I'm not afraid to cut losses if something doesn't perform to my expectations. Like I'm willing to take a risk on something, and if they're not executing, I mean, there's unforeseen things, right? Like I'm not gonna not invest in a company because they had a tank blow up, like Rocket Lab, for example, recently. But if they have a history of not performing, then I don't mind cutting. So Virgin Galactic was a company I invested in, and just consistent setbacks and consistent overspends, and just more so on marketing than actually developing the vehicles and getting people into space. And so I sold that, put that money into Rocket Lab. What do I mean by doing your own due diligence? Everybody has their own risk tolerance. And generally speaking, people will try to pump their own bags and be super excited, but rarely will they actually talk about the downsides and the risks of investing in a particular company. And so, in reality, every company has a range of outcomes depending on specific scenarios, whether that's regulatory, whether that's just capital constraints or the environment that they're in, think oil and gas price environment, etc. So they could have the world's best execution, but it's a moving target sometimes. Like gas prices can go from $10 an MCF to $2 an MCF, and even though you have the world's best execution team, the price environment just might not fit out for you. So it's about understanding where that sits and are you willing to take on that opportunity or risk for that opportunity. Like a prime example is a lot of people always ask about Venture Global or Next, and I always ask them to do their own DD. Like think about, like, Next Decade has no revenue production. So technically, if let's just say everything goes to shit and there's cost overruns, they could go bankrupt. Versus a Venture Global making a decent amount of income, very unlikely it's going to go bankrupt because it is producing that income. And so, less likelihood that you'll lose your entire bag on a Venture Global here than a Next Decade. But at the same time, I potentially see Next Decade as a 15 to 20x, potentially more on the upside case. On the downside case, I still look at it as a potential 5 to 10x, more likely a 5 for the downside. But there's ranges. Versus a Venture Global, maybe it just languishes at 50 to $60 billion. Could only be at 2x or so. And then even in the base case, it might go up 5 to 6x from where it is today. And in the upside case, maybe it goes up, an 8x from where it is today with buybacks, etc. So, it goes back to, well, what are you willing to risk? Would you rather risk the potential for bankruptcy? And then if that's the case and you are, maybe next decade is the opportunity for you. But maybe you don't want to lose that money. And so you feel a little bit more comfortable investing in a venture global. So it's really about, when I say due diligence, knowing the ins and outs of companies. Like, for example, doing your own due diligence means when Henry Hub gas prices go up or down, you recognize that that might not actually move the stock price for Venture Global or Next. And it's very dependent upon the spread of Henry Hub to the TTF facility in Europe, or to the Japan Korean marker facilities in Japan and Korea, and not just the value of Henry Hub. So if they move up in tandem, if both Europe and America are both cold at the same time and the gas prices go up, it's likely that Venture Global and Next Decade aren't going to really move because the spot price remains intact. And that's about just understanding what actually happens with the actual company itself, how it works, the inner workings, etc. A lot of times what you hear is people just have very surface level knowledge of the company. Um, Prime example is like Symbotic. You could look at Symbotic and say that the biggest opportunity and risk that they have is the same thing. You could say, well, they both, Walmart is their biggest opportunity, but Walmart is also their biggest risk, because they lose Walmart, they lose a majority of their revenue. But if they keep Walmart, Walmart is the largest retail distributor with most warehouses, or one of the most warehouse usages in the United States. And so if you're able to implement all of what Symbotic is doing in every single one of those warehouses, it's a big opportunity. But the majority of revenue right now comes from Walmart for Symbotic. So it's a plus, it's a double-edged sword. So anyway. I meant, why wouldn't you call the start of crypto winter with hindsight? How do you define the start of winter? The Bitcoin peak at 125 and then the year as it falls, or a year after new floor? I personally am looking 12 to 18 months from now. And I don't know. Like, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I mean, to me, it wasn't obvious that you were going to be entering a crypto winter until it tried this most recent, and I could be wrong on this, right? Like, experts, I'm sure, will prove me wrong, but to me, it wasn't obvious until this failed $95,000 attempt that it wasn't going to meet all-time highs again. And so therefore, to me, that is the start of winter. You could say in retrospect that, okay, it slowly decreased from 125 to below 100. It briefly got back over 100, then to 95, and now it's crashed. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just, this is the way I'm interpreting it, and my interpretations are just mine. They might not be right. It really depends, man. Like, enough where I feel confident in investing, and you're always going to learn more. I think if you waited forever until you know the whole industry, you'd probably never invest. So I think it's really just to understand how much you're comfortable. The problem is, though, is I think a lot of people don't put in enough due diligence at all, and then when a risk is realized, they're like, "Oh my god, how could this ever have happened to me?" And it's like you just invested in the headlines. You didn't actually look at what the true downside of something was. I loved being VG shareholder. I regret selling it earlier in the year. Looking to get back in once at a better price. It's at a great price right now. So I don't really understand that personally, but I guess, yeah, to each their own. To each their own. I just think that the price is good now. We should also look into some of the posts on how much extra Bitcoin is being used with margin and options and swaps. Sure, it's a lot. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot. I have a crazy question. What if Epstein is the founder of Bitcoin? That would surely tank the price, wouldn't it? Probably, but I don't think that that's the case. I don't know everything, man. Like I'm just trying to. I just refuse to believe that in a stream a couple months back, people were like crypto winter, like that's never a thing anymore. You have the toots in, you have the government in, and it just didn't feel like the momentum was there. Um, Melanie, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it just didn't seem like the institutions were giving as much momentum. Like I think it really helped the late half of 24, early 25, but it just seemed like after the first half of the year, it really just didn't gain the momentum that I was expecting it to. So, but hey, yeah, I appreciate you guys. If you guys could do me a quick favor, and I'll post it in the chat as well. Um, I've started to post all these on Spotify. So if you guys are ever curious and want to watch it on there instead, I recognize that YouTube Premium, without it, you can't close the application and listen to it on your phone, and you still might want to be able to. So if you guys could just go over there and at least follow. You don't have to listen to it over there. Just at least hit follow, write a comment about what you've heard in the past if you could, and it would really mean a lot. And hopefully, if you guys like listening over there, then maybe I gain a following over there as well. And the hope is to just get more people in the community. And I think a lot of people like just grow one, man. And it's like, well, there's people on Kick that don't ever go on YouTube. There's people on Twitch that don't ever. And it's like, you mean you want me to even though it's only like 100 people that follow me on Twitch, or even though it's only like 5 people that follow me on Kick, you want me to completely just leave those people out because they're not a part of the YouTube community? It doesn't make sense. Like it's more about getting people involved and enthused about investing overall, not necessarily about making sure that they all show up on YouTube. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's more about just getting more people invested and hopefully changing their lives through investing rather than hyper focusing on the income. Although the income is nice and it will eventually be about the income, as hopefully I'm more potentially to live off of this income for do rather than a 9 to 5 or something like that. But yeah, and yeah, I try to go back in retrospect and add this to podcast as well on YouTube for the people that and I've gotten some good feedback that people are now able to kind of listen to it that way as well. But I know a lot of people listen to podcasts on Spotify. So. Yeah, I've gone back and added the majority of these onto a playlist, and I think Cashflow Chronicles as well. So cool. I appreciate you all. It's about midnight here, and I need to get some sleep, and I still need to work tomorrow. So appreciate you all, and I saw Steve was finishing up with Amit, and I figured I'd come on and at least say hello and give you guys my lay of the land. And if you guys are interested, I did do a Q&A for the past like hour, but the first 30 minutes was really about a monologue around what I think is going on in the market. And so if you guys didn't hear that and you're curious on my takes and what's going on macro wise, it's probably not right, as it never is, but at least it's my interpretation of what's going on, and at least the way I'm situating it. And in short, what I will say is that if you were to prioritize anything right now, I still believe that crypto is going to be in a depressed state for the next 12 to 18 months. So if you were to prioritize putting money, if you are putting money to work, I would prioritize, the SaaS names and or companies you believe in for the long term, as those I believe will potentially rebound much faster than say a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so if that's the case, then you might have time to like I might not focus on BM&R right now because I think I might have the time to potentially add over that over the next say 12 to 18 months versus a like Palantir or Rocket Lab. I think that there could be a recovery over the next couple weeks associated with it. So you guys rock, much appreciated. And yeah, if you guys have any pictures that you took at the meetup, be sure to tag me in them. It's been great seeing a lot of the people tag me in the pictures over the past week. Reliving that has been absolutely awesome, and hope to see you guys soon. And I'll see if I can get on a stream with Steve or Chris here in the coming days. So thank you all for stopping